this on? Yep, okay. So, all right, everyone, we're going to just go ahead and start here. If people come in, you know, that's cool. I think it's on. Is this on, right? Just hold it here. Oh, right here. Hello, 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 hello. You sure? Yeah, I think it's fine. We'll just deal with it. So this is our presentation on GoBabyGo, changing a child's life one car at a time. We're going to kind of talk through how it started, how it's evolved, what it was in Michigan. We are a Michigan team, so we're going to talk about that just a little bit, and then how we're going to spread GoBabyGo through first and through all of you. So we are the Petoskey Paladins, Team 3618 from up north Michigan, tip of the Lower Peninsula. And with me today, is this better? Oh, that's better. We'll use this one. So I'm Gabe Meyerson from the Paladins. Joining me today, we have Paige Smith, our awards team leader, Seth, our CAD team leader, Elena, our marketing and programming team leader, along with some adults. We have Jason Crom, our electronics mentor, as well as he's kind of helped lead up the GoBabyGo program in our team, and Nicole Lindwall, the SHARM ISD early on coordinator, and we'll talk about how crucial she is to this whole program. With that, we'll just jump right in. This is just a quick video explaining, thanks. A quick video explaining.
Xander, here. In the classroom, Xander's got a lot of really good friends.
Not like you carried him.
In more open area situations, you can kind of get a little left behind.
I have lots of kids that aren't invited to birthday parties, ever. Friends are hard to make when you're not mobile.
When he's on the bike, he just often just gets this really big, like, happy grin on his face.
I want you to feel like you have control over your own happiness. And I know for young children, that's attached to your mobility. Here we are.
We keep a variety of cars so that we can mix and match parts.
I'm Cole Galloway, the founder of GoBabyGo, a project to increase exploration in kids with special needs. We take off-the-shelf ride-on cars and we modify them lightly to get them going. The materials of interest are PVC, nuts and bolts, things you get at your hardware store. I came to Delaware in 2000. And started a traditional research lab studying how kids learn to move their bodies. There are no commercially available power wheelchairs for children that are under 3. So out of the frustration, myself and a high school research assistant a couple of summers back went to Toys R Us. We jacked up all the small cars, took them all off the shelves. The manager comes running, "What are you doing?" And we said, "We're having a lab meeting, of course." And we went and solved it for $100 for a ride-on car and $100 worth of materials from Home Depot. We could get the same kind of mobility. That was too good to be true. Fast forward 2 or 3 years, and now we're modifying ride-on cars all over the country. We're in front of 20 to 50 families and clinicians each workshop, teaching them how to modify cars. We provide very basic YouTube videos that parents and clinicians can view. They can build a car off of them, combine that with the manual that we send out, have an electrical or mechanical engineer come by and certify it. You're ready to go.
You can see a very typical design platform.
I don't know why we felt the need to give it away, except I think everybody would do that. There's no reason to hold on to this and fight for a territory when there's literally hundreds of thousands of kids all over the world today sitting still. Now it becomes a chess match of how quickly we can get it out. We'll bring children in from the community into the Early Learning Center gym. Plop everybody down in a car, invite our toddler and preschool friends to just play. The adults back off, and you get a whirlwind of socialization and mobility.
So Sarah doesn't have a reason to keep her head up. Well, when she drives her ride-on car, she has a reason. That's the accelerators behind her head.
You sit up tall with your head, right there, you go.
Xander has the big 4x4. By making it a simple switch that you can have to stand up to make it go, it requires him to have to get stronger in his legs, stronger bones, and that'll get him ready to throw those crutches away. That's exactly what we're after. A typically developing kid and a special guy bonding. That's a big friend, little friend. And Xander even mentioned, like, why is he following me around? And it was like, because you're a superhero.
When he uses the stand-up car, not only can he keep up with the friends, but sometimes the friends have to keep up with him. And so it kind of puts him more in a place of like being the leader as opposed to just being the follower.
It's a motorcycle.
Just the love of chasing after a child, yelling, "You better come back here right now, young man, or you're going to get run over." There are a lot of kids out there that never get told no or come back here because they don't have anywhere to go. And once you give them a chance to go, they'll drive to you a little bit, and they're going to drive away from you. And so when Xander runs away from home, then I know we're good.
So this next slide is about how GoBabyGo is being implemented in Michigan. So there's only a few handfuls of programs in Michigan. One of the other larger groups is the Blue Water Area Robotics Alliance in Port Huron, and there's 9 teams in their group, and they use a similar program to GoBabyGo called My Kids on the Move. And they also have a lot of good stuff on their websites too if you want to check them out. But mostly what we do is we're trying to spread it in northern Michigan and get it around in our area. So we had a conference similar to this one at our RoboCon to get our other local teams more involved and excited about the program.
So obviously GoBabyGo didn't just happen in a day. It's taken a lot of work, and it's kind of grown over the course of the last year or so. It was originally brought to northern Michigan by a lady named Mary Johnson. She's an occupational therapist with the Charlevoix-Emmett County Intermediate School District. She attended a conference where GoBabyGo was presented, and she thought that it was a really good idea. The original concept was to have the parents of the children modify the cars, and the original concept was that for the kids to drive on their own, and it was fairly simple modifications. This, however, proved to be a lot of stress on the parents. And so Nicole Lindwall decided, who's the early on coordinator for the Charm ISD, sought to reduce some of that stress. And she recognized that since First Robotics is already equipped to help with some of the hardware aspects, this could be a very mutually beneficial partnership. So she approached us, and so far we've done 3 builds together, and it's been an unequivocal success. We've not just limited it to ourselves, however. Again, like Elena said, we've reached out to other northern Michigan teams. Of the 3 builds, Jeremiah, who's here today, his build was helped by Team 5560, the Central Lake Robotics, and Brooke, who is a child that we did another build for, the Boyne City Blaze, Team 4377, has taken over modifications for her car. And our goal, again, is to spread GoBabyGo to all of the teams in northern Michigan to give us as a chance to get this out to as many young kids as possible.
So here's the news clip video that our local station put on about our build with Jeremiah.
Well, high school robotics teams from across northern Michigan came together today to help make a difference in the life of a child with disabilities. 7 and 4 Savannah Fish was there to watch the build of this life-changing project.
This smiling boy is 2-year-old Jeremiah Nelson.
Well, Jeremiah was born with spina bifida, so he's limited in his movement in his legs and some on his right side as well. So he's not able to crawl or walk or anything like that.
Until today. All thanks to these high school students from Charm ISD, Petoskey, and Central Lake High School robotics teams.
As soon as I met him, I knew this is going to be great. I can't wait to see this little kid with his car.
Students like Paige Smith volunteered their Saturday to partner with GoBabyGo. a program that rebuilds motorized cars designed specifically for children with disabilities, children just like Jeremiah.
So we took out the seat and the steering wheel that it came with, and we replaced it with one that he can hold since he has really good mobility with his left hand. He'll have harnesses for him to be able to sit up straight and a backrest for him so he'll be comfortable. So he'll get in and he'll be able to do it completely by himself.
Students spent weeks preparing for the day of Jeremiah's car build and spent more than 4 hours to deconstruct and rebuild the modified car.
We aren't just following a template. We did everything for this car specifically with him in mind.
Robotics team mentor Dave Hickman says his team builds robots all of the time, but this project was unlike anything that they have ever done.
We're not just building a robot. This actually impacts somebody's life. It's just a feeling you can't replace. This child is actually going to have the freedom that we all take for granted to just move around as he wants. And I don't know how to put that into words without tearing up, to be honest.
It's overwhelming. I come in here this morning not really knowing what to expect, and you see close to 30 people from all over northern Michigan take time out of their lives and do this for our kid, and it warms my heart to know that we're part of this community, and so we're so thankful.
In Charlevoix County, Savannah Fish, 7 and 4 News.
The students from Shoreham ISD, Petoskey, and Central Lake Robotics teams have already started talking about ways to build Jeremiah's next car and new features to help him get around easier as he...
So the rest of our presentation, we're going to go over exactly how to implement GoBabyGo, and some of the steps we're going to talk about are finding an organization that works with special needs children aged 2 to 4, working with that organization to find interested families, setting up a planning meeting, gathering your materials, setting a build date, and then finally following up.
So the first step is to find a local organization. It is best to find a local one, that way they already know kids in the area that you can help out, and it's not so much of a time commitment to travel there and back in the first few builds. Some different organizations you can get in touch with are some early intervention services, or ISD, nonprofit organizations, some that work with specific illnesses or in general, some hospitals, or local occupational and physical therapists. The therapists are probably your best bet for starting out. It's also really important to find a liaison for your team. Our liaison is Nicole Lindwall, and she's the one who goes out and she finds the children for us to build the car for. It's important, and it can be an early intervention coordinator, occupational therapist, physical therapist, or anyone who works with children with disabilities.
Hi, so I'm Nicole Lindwall. I'm the person that they referenced prior, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how you identify children that would benefit. And I just kind of want to mention that I know that there are people from lots of different states in this area, and what I do, which is, my title is Early On Coordinator, means I coordinate services for children birth to 3 in the state of Michigan that have identified disabilities. But that role can be very different depending on which state you're in. And so what we call it in general is early intervention services, and it is through the schools. That's what the intermediate school district is. In some states or counties, they call it an ESD, Educational Service District. So I say those things because in the event that you're interested in doing something like this, what you really want to do is kind of track down who provides early intervention services in your area. And that's something you could even Google. So in our state, it's called Early On. I think in Virginia, it might be called First Steps or something like that. They do it differently. So I mention that because I know that people are coming from different places. So for what I do is I make sure that when children are identified in our local area with a disability, that I can coordinate and set up services for them. And for children under the age of 3, it's always in the home, which makes sense because that's where they feel comfortable at. And so when they say that I find them kids, really what it means is I know these kids because in general, I've known about them since they were born sometimes. In Jeremiah's case, I knew he was coming. So when they came home from the hospital, we were ready to meet him and start a relationship with him. And that's one thing that we really want to stress here is that that relationship with the family is so vital to this project because building a car is cool, but it means nothing unless it's important to that child and to that family. So those therapists that you might make contact with, they're the ones that have really fostered a very strong relationship with these families over the course of a long period of time, and they know them intricately. So they know what's important to them, they know what makes their child tick, they know what they're worried about. And so if you can tap into that resource, that's going to do all of the work for you, because I know the kids are excited about building the car. But they also have such a huge payoff when they get to see this child driving that car, and they get to see how much it means to that family. So I say that the second piece is when we know, for example, like Jason here is always dying to build a car. So what he wants to know is who's coming down, like who's going to be ready. And I may have a child that's 18 months old right now and not quite ready, but I can say to him, well, you know, give him 6 months. I think we're gonna have someone that might be ready for it. And then what I do is I talk to the therapists and I say, you know, what do you think? Do you think this family would want to participate? But you have to know that there's a few things that we require of families, and we kind of learned this over time. For one thing, the families would need to be able to commit to a full day on a Saturday to come, because we have to have them there and the child there so that we can modify the whole car for them. The second thing is they would need to be able to store it. So, you know, you don't think about that kind of stuff, but if you have families living in apartments, then it might not work for them. They need to be willing to supervise their child in the car, you know, because it is an electric car. So you kind of want to have some conversations, and what we did was after our first build, we were so excited about it, and then it dawned on us that there's a difference between trying something and then doing it. So once we realized that this was going to be a thing, we started talking about, oh, you know what, we need a waiver. Oh, you know what, we need an application. And then it turned into just trying to lay a little bit of groundwork so that we had some things in place. But really the most important thing is to have that conversation with the families to say, hey, what do you think about doing this? This is what it would mean. Would you like to? The one thing that I'll point out, which is a surprise to us about parents, is despite all of the kind of marketing we've done about it, we do have some parents that are a little reluctant to have their children participate. And the reason being is that I think that's a mindset that they feel that it's only for children that will never walk. And we have lots of kids who will be delayed walking. We have children that are 2 and 3 years old that are working on it. That doesn't mean that they won't ever walk, but we also are trying to help them understand that this is just a way for them to get around. It's not necessarily the only thing that will ever help them, and it certainly won't dissuade them from walking. When you think about when you first got your very first bike, what did that mean to you? Freedom. You know, you could go somewhere. And that's what this is supposed to be. It's not necessarily an alternative to walking. It's something to help them get around. The other piece I want to mention is that there are no commercially available wheelchairs for children under the age of 3. And so that was one of the reasons why this came about. So the second thing that we found out that was really important is to kind of come together as a group, including the families when possible, to set up a planning meeting, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. So what you really want to do is make sure that if that family is connected with a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, those people are so important. They have to be there because they know the functionality of that child. They know if that child can sit up, if they have trunk support. They know if that child lists. They know if that child has a stronger side of their body. They know, because you're going to be powering it with this button. We have one girl that's powering it with her head because she doesn't have the ability to move the rest of her body. So those therapists really have all of that detail information that you really, really need. And then you really want to hear from the family. You want to know exactly from them what their child is doing, what they can't do yet, what they want them to do, because some of the things, the adaptations we can put in the cars actually are therapeutic. In Jeremiah's case specifically, one of our great surprises was that we're working on him holding his head up, and because he's so motivated to drive that car, he does it on his own, and so that was a really neat thing that we discovered. But we wouldn't have known that unless we talked to everybody about what they were working on. So I just talked about the switch, the steering, what kind of use do they have of their hands? And then the thing that always wakes me up in the middle of the night, and I think Jason feels the same way too, is just the seating and the support. So what we've found is that you often have to have several options at the ready because you don't know until you get there what's going to be the best seating option. And often parents have things that they've gotten themselves that they use at home, but they might not want it drilled into a car. They might want to be able to pick it up, pull it out. So we've brought several seating options to builds, and at the last one we actually even asked Jeremiah's mom to run to our house and get her sewing machine, which was a new one for us. So you have to be kind of prepared for anything. The more you can lay out ahead of time is great, but then kind of prepare for anything. And then what you want to do is determine when. We largely base our builds on the robotics team's schedule because they have busy times and they have slow times. So we build around that. Some of our kids have a lot of medical involvement. Some of them have surgeries that they're planning, or they have to go to the doctor. And so we have to really keep that in mind as well. And then make sure that you have everything that you need. We also have volunteers that will come as well. So it's quite a lot to just kind of coordinate. And it is really helpful if you have one person that's in that role that just decides that that's what they're going to do, because there are a lot of moving parts.
So then it's time to build, and you have to decide getting materials together. The big thing is to have a meeting early. Like Nicole said, she'll come in and say she has a kid. We plan out what we're going to need. We have a list on our website that can help with that. It's nothing special. Basic hand tools, drills, saws, PVC cutters. You need a car, and that's probably the biggest thing, is to get the car ahead of time. I think in the video, Cole Galloway said they're not expensive. They're not. I've bought all the cars for our team. They're $100 or $150. You can buy them online. You can buy them from Walmart. But you need to make sure the car is appropriate for the child. Samuel's a little guy. We bought him a little car. Jeremiah, I'm sorry, I'm talking about his brother. We've had some kids who are bigger and had a bigger seat, and we needed to get them a bigger car. So plan the car out. You can certainly ask local businesses for donations. Personally, I feel like anybody who watches those videos is going to make a donation to you. It's just not that expensive for what you get back in return. We talked about a hardware store nearby. We never get it quite right, so it's nice to have a hardware store nearby and maybe designate somebody as your hardware store runner so that you're planning on doing that. And then Nicole talked about the kid-specific stuff. The things you really have to get ahead of time are the car, the button that they're going to use to make it go, and then there's a kill switch you put on the back, and you guys will get a chance to see Jeremiah's car and look at that so that they can turn it off and be safe. Working with sponsors. I am a sponsor. Like I said, I think it's really easy. We've never had anybody, money has not been an issue with this. There is grant money in all communities. Our local community foundation has set aside grant money for us if we need it. We haven't needed much of it. It's really a pretty thrifty program. Yeah. One cool thing about this program is it doesn't take a lot of time. Right? You'll have a pre-meeting, you buy some materials, and then you get together for the day of the build. We usually get together at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 1 o'clock, there's a driving car. So it's pretty quick, not a big time commitment. Food's important. Kids work for food. I am an electrician, so that schedule somebody who's an electrician that can okay the car. They say electrician or electrical engineer, just somebody who can okay the wiring so it's safe. It's important to structure the day for the family. Like it's a big, long day for a lot of these kids. And so if it's close to the family, that's the best. If there's provisions, so if the kids need breaks or naps or food or whatever's going on, that needs to be part of the planning process. More than 4 to 6 people per car is probably too many. So you don't need a big crew, but you definitely need the family involved. And that's one of the best parts, is working on the car with the family and the therapists and as a team. And I already covered that. Me again? Wow. All right. I think I covered some of this stuff. Tools and materials. That's pretty straightforward. It didn't go. Yeah, it did. It's similar. Food for volunteers. We talked about the parents. We like to start with an icebreaker activity where we meet everybody. It's really important to us to hear from the family and learn about the child and see what special needs and what goals there are. And like talking about Jeremiah, what challenges we're going to try to provide. And then Nicole touched on the different seating positions. I don't think we've ever gotten it quite right the first time. The first time you set the child in the car, there's going to be some more support or straps or modifications you need. So you need to allow for that.
And then, even though this program is for children aged 2 to 4, the needs of each participant are still likely to change. So as kids grow, some different needs that change involve different cushions or perhaps a new seat or a chair. As they get bigger, different straps, again, like Mr. Crom said. Some kids will need more leg room in the car. The steering wheel can change, and you can also implement a more sophisticated steering mechanism like a joystick. And then oftentimes we've found that parents will request something like a parent-controlled steering, so that the parents don't have to just like walk along and nudge the wheels with their feet or something, and then perhaps even a remote kill switch that can give the parents just a little bit more control.
So like we said, we're trying to pass this on to other teams and get as many teams as we can first involved in this really cool program. So as we mentioned before, partner with your local organizations. Find those therapists that can help you find families. But once you have those therapists and once you have those families, like we said, we had one out in Central Lake. That's kind of a drive for us, so we invited the Central Lake Robotics, and we want you guys to do the same thing. Get not only your own team involved, like you can see we have some of our members here to learn more about it. Make sure that you have other teams involved and you're pulling in other teams so this program can grow. Because that's the overall goal, is just get as many people as we can involved, and this program to be bigger and bigger so that every kid that needs one can have a car.
So the news story that we played earlier, it spread all throughout the country. It spread through Dallas, Houston, throughout the Midwest, even Boston. From that news story, Governor Snyder, his office reached out to our team, and he wanted to get involved with the program and what we were doing. He wants to try and get a way to implement this program into FIRST and spread it as much as possible, and even implement it into the classroom to get non-robotics kids involved with this program as much as possible. From our contact with the governor, he reached out to us even further and said, attend the Michigan State of the State address. So he invited representatives from our team and the Nelson family to attend the Michigan State of the State address. So here's that clip.
Now, one of my favorite programs, you've heard this before, is FIRST Robotics. This is an after-school program that takes place from elementary school through high school, but in particular the high school programs, FIRST Robotics, we have over 500 high school teams. To give you a point of reference,
We have more teams than California and New York combined. We are the leader in this field, and you can see what this can do when I talk about this next story. I want to tell you the story about Jeremiah Nelson. Jeremiah is only a couple years old. He has the most serious form of spina bifida, and he can't crawl or walk. But he had an early on mentor that went out and found two robotics teams, two first teams, the Petoskey Paladins and the Central Lake Robotics. What did they do? They customized a car for Jeremiah so he can get around and interact with other kids. Now, there's no manual to do this. This is unique work. They just said, we're going to do this. And they build him a cool robotics car. And it's changing lives. It's changing their lives for doing this kind of work to help Jeremiah. It's changing Jeremiah's life. And it's showing all what we can do, what these young people can do, when we just provide the form and the elements for their success. And it's great. Tonight we have a special guest. Let's open those doors and let's welcome in Jeremiah, his mom Danielle, his dad Stacy, his brother Samuel. Oh. Those are some cool wheels we got there for Jeremiah. And my family will tell me when we're done, Jeremiah is probably a better driver than I am today. I'd also like to recognize some people on the balcony, though, that helped make that happen. Not only did we have Jeremiah's family with us, we had Jason Crum from Bear River Electrics, the mentor for the team, and Paige Smith and Matt Carey, two team members. So if you could stand and we could recognize you. Thank you.
So if you're interested in getting involved with the program or starting something similar in your area, we have a lot of resources for information. The first website, which is one of the best ones that we have, is the GoBabyGoConnect.com. And this is the team that first started taking the GoBabyGo program and putting it into, the Canuckets from Kansas City. And they started doing this a few years before we did, but they were the first robotics team to take the GoBabyGo program and put it with their team. And then the next one there is our team email. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask. And then if you want to have some more specific build day related questions, you can ask our mentor, Mr. Crum, and there's his email. And then Nicole Lindwall's contact information is up there as well. The manual from the University of Delaware is that's their rules and guidelines and just what we based a lot of our program off of, so that's also really helpful information. And then there's a slideshow with all this information on our website, which is the last link there.
Now, the Nelson family is here today, and they brought Jeremiah's car, so he's going to come and drive up. And now we're going to have Danielle Nelson say a few words.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for asking us to be a part of this. We first heard of GoBabyGo the spring before his car was built, when the Paladins did their first couple builds. I think it was your first couple builds. But we thought it was a pretty exciting opportunity. For Jeremiah, like it mentioned in the video, he's pretty limited in his lower mobility and on his right side. So his opportunities to crawl or walk or move independently, he hasn't had those. So in the video, you saw him drive the car, and that was his first opportunity that he had to move all on his own, which was pretty cool. And he loves his car. His build was this past December, so living in northern Michigan, we have not had a chance to get it outside yet. Hopefully soon, when all the snow is gone. But he has loved the opportunities he's had to drive it around gyms and our house, just any large space that there is. Pretty soon, we'll get to do parking lots and sidewalks too. But I have to say, there were a couple things that blew me away about this program. One was to see how excited a group of high school students were to get up early on a Saturday morning to build a car for someone else. I thought that was pretty cool to see. And just to see other community members coming together to make this car for Jeremiah. And another thing, as the parent of a child with special needs, I lose count of how many specialists and therapists he has, but I think right now we're kind of around 18. And living rurally, most of them are not near us. We have early on that comes to our house, but most of his therapists are an hour drive each way, and most of his specialists are 3 hours drive each way. So we spend a lot of time on the road. And it was pretty awesome to have this build come to us. And be done in our hometown. We didn't have to drive 3 hours away to Grand Rapids to have that happen. And so that meant a lot to us. And kids and families with limited mobility don't just live in cities, they live all over. And to have that opportunity be nearby, I thought was pretty cool. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Stacy?
So I think for me, being dad, I get a little bit of a different perspective. I get, you get the state of the state, you see the happiness. You get the day where he finally pushes the button, you see the happiness. We get to see a lot of the not so happy times, the times where he's, around kids his own age and he can't even roll over. But that day when they built this car, and you could just tell he could keep up. He could do it, he could go. Huge smile on his face and everybody else. I had to leave because I was bawling. So, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who had a hand in this. And I want this to be an encouragement for those of you who think maybe robotics is just, building stuff, It really does change people's lives, and it's amazing. So, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to do some questions. So if anyone has any questions. Oh, yeah.
Anyone know that answer to that? What was the question? Where the name GoBabyGo came from? I think the gentleman that you saw in the first video, Dr. Cole Galloway, it was his brainchild, and he came up with that himself. The GoBabyGo national headquarters still remain at the University of Delaware. And I have to say, they've been really wonderful. They take no ownership of the GoBabyGo logo. You know, we got in touch with them and we just said, hey, you know, we want to do this. And they said, take our logo, do with it what you want, do presentations, do builds. So they were never restrictive about that at all. And truly, I think that if it were up to these guys, we would be doing them all the time. But I keep saying to them, like, we're a small ISD. I don't just have kids, like, coming through. You have to wait until they get big enough to be. And I will mention one other thing. The age range is really kind of specific. We have had people ask us, well, what about older kids? And in truth, Dr. Galloway really advises against doing it for anyone over the age of 4. They start to get pretty big, and the cars don't necessarily fit. The other thing I want to mention is that truly the reason for doing this is because there are no commercial wheelchairs for children under the age of 3. Once they get to the age of 4 and 5, they can be fitted into something that helps them get around. But we're trying to give them a temporary solution for not being able to be mobile. Go ahead.
So for us, Nicole's our person. She comes to us. One thing we've said is we feel like any kid in the state of Michigan that needs a car should get one. There's over 500 robotics teams, right? You guys, yeah. We're helping somebody in Tampa right now. We didn't go to Tampa, but just through emails and stuff. So you guys would want to find your local therapist that handles this stuff and say, hey, we're available, maybe show them a video, and pretty easy, really.
You know, on the contact list is my email, and if any of you are interested and you don't know who might be, you know, a contact in your area, you're welcome to email me, and I'll figure it out and help make introductions, because we all speak a different language. You know, when I walk through this hall in robotics, I have no idea what you people are doing. But in the same vein, my world in special education is kind of a little confusing too. So if you are interested, just reach out to me and I'll help figure out who your person is and help you make that introduction.
One benefit for the students in this, and it's a very first thing, is you're going to meet occupational therapists and physical therapists and all kinds of different professions that we don't get to see in typical first days. So you pick up a whole nother layer of mentors that, and there's a lot of students that maybe aren't going to be engineers, but they could see themselves doing something in this world. So it's a good fit. The kids who went and built the last car for us, I think only 1 or 2 were actually like on our build team. The rest were all marketing and non-technical stuff. They did great.
Yeah, do you guys want to come up and look at it? Jeremiah's dying to get back in that car. We were so mean, we put him in and then pulled him out. The problem for Jeremiah is he likes to go fast, so that kill switch was really important for him.